we are going to talk about what is yoga and then what it isn't. To talk about what is yoga, let me just say, I was worried and nervous about making this guide. It was the last guide that I ended up making for the entire program. I was putting it off. And the reason why is because it's kind of vague. Like the actual history of yoga is pretty unknown. There's certain aspects that are known, but if you were to ask anyone, like, when did yoga begin? When did yoga originate? You're just going to hear like vague terms like 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. If you look it up, you're going to see a lot of this. It's unknown when it exactly began, but most people will say it's about a 5,000-year-old practice. Now, even when I went to my yoga teacher training, that was the answer I got. And I was like, whoa, like it just made me kind of uncomfortable of like, we don't know? I guess we don't. Here's what we do know. The word yoga actually means to unite. It means union, or it literally means to yoke. It's the root word is yog, and it means to yoke, which means uniting. And what you're uniting is your mind, body, and spirit. And so that is the practice of yoga, is union of mind, body, and spirit. It's an ancient Indian philosophy, and it's written in the Sanskrit language. And that's why you're hearing words like shavasana and tadasana and a lot of words that are ending with the word asana, because asana in Sanskrit means like seat or pose, posture. It literally means seat. So to take a seat in this pose. And yoga most commonly today is known for its physical practice, the exercises that we're doing. And when you go to a yoga studio, go to a gym, you're seeing this physical practice. And that's the easiest way to consume like what is yoga. It's this physical practice that's kind of fluid sometimes. It's long holding sometimes. Some people think it's really easy. Some people realize it's really hard sometimes. But really, it's a combination of breathing exercises, meditation, physical postures, and there's some lifestyle elements as well. Now, before I go into that, I don't want to overwhelm you, because I really truly believe that everyone is on their own journey, and yoga is unique to you. So you might enter yoga thinking, I don't want to do meditation. I don't care about the other stuff. I don't want to hear that. I just want to do the physical practice. It makes me feel good. Okay, totally fine. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that because I believe that everyone is on their own journey, and your journey is going to look different from mine. And there might be a day that you say, what is this meditation? Or that breathing made me feel really good. What was that? I want to learn more about that. And that's totally okay too. Or maybe there's some of you that are like, I want all of it. Give me all of it. Tell me everything. I want to learn everything. I want to devour it all. I want to consume it and digest it and be it. And that's cool too. Whatever your practice is, it's unique to you, and that's totally okay. So as I'm saying that, as I get into the philosophy of yoga, remember that it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be like, well, I don't follow these things, therefore I'm not a yogi. You are a yogi. You practice yoga, okay? You're exactly where you need to be. Now, as I mentioned, the history of yoga is that there's no consensus on the exact origin, but it is a 5,000-year-old practice, or about a 5,000-year-old practice. And it was brought to the West by a Swami named Patanjali. And he brought this yoga philosophy guidebook called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. If you do a 200-hour teacher training, you're probably going to learn about these Yoga Sutras, because it's very important in the foundation of yoga. And when you're teaching yoga, most studios want you to understand the roots of what you're teaching. And when yoga came to the West, I mean, even then, yoga mats, and this is like kind of a tangent, but it's so funny to me. People get so hyped up on their yoga mats and that they need this like grippy, I can't do yoga without this yoga mat. And I'm telling you, all you need is your body to do yoga. Like yoga mats are supplementary, yoga blocks are supplementary, yoga straps are supplementary. You got your body, your breath, your mind, that's what you need. And when yoga was first brought to the West, yoga mats weren't really a thing. Even in India, yoga mats were actually like cloth, like woven rugs, more than what our traditional mat is today. The traditional mat today was actually invented by a woman who's practicing yoga. Her father owned a carpet pad company, the pad that goes underneath carpets. And she cut that into a yoga mat, and that was like the first modern day grippy yoga mat. Yoga mats are wonderful. They're awesome. I obviously like sell my own yoga mats because I love the yoga mats that I practice on, but I'm just telling you, you can do yoga without a yoga mat. You can go be in a hotel and be like, oh, I forgot my mat, and just put a towel on the floor and practice, and you're totally fine. Now back into our What is Yoga guide. Let's get into the yoga philosophy. Now, as I mentioned before, yoga is more than your physical postures. And even though I say that, today, it might just be the physical postures for you, and that's okay. But today I'm going to outline the 8 limbs of yoga, which came from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The 8 limbs of yoga is a yoga philosophy about how to live a meaningful, purposeful life according to these 8 limbs of yoga. Again, like I cannot emphasize enough that your journey is unique to you. And I'm going to talk about all 8 limbs, but there might be times where you're only interested in one limb. There might be times you like go into depth on that one limb, and there's other times where you kind of look at the whole wheel and see like, where do you want to round out and learn more about these other limbs. Whatever works for you. If you really, really want to learn more about these limbs, I highly recommend a 200-hour yoga teacher training, because you're going to learn everything in depth. This is as simple as I could have made it. So for the 8 limbs of yoga, I put it like a wheel here because I try not to think of it like a ladder. It's not something that you climb one limb at a time to get to the next. It's more like balance. And so these 8 limbs of yoga, the first 2 are the yamas and the niyamas. And the yamas are moral restraints, and the niyamas are your observances of yourself. So the yamas and niyamas they're really similar to the 10 commandments and roots of a lot of religious practices, but yoga is not a religion, to be very, very clear. You can practice yoga and you can have faith, and you can use your yoga to deepen your faith. And your faith can be in any religion, and you can still practice yoga. Even though yoga has roots in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, it's not a religion. It's more of a way of life or a lifestyle. And for you, it might just be an exercise. But the yamas are your moral restraints. So now this is where you might hear some of these words being thrown around occasionally in yoga, like ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, and aparigraha. So that's the Sanskrit side of what the yamas are. So ahimsa means non-harming, non-violence. A lot of people associate ahimsa with like veganism, living a vegan lifestyle. A lot of people associate ahimsa with not hurting other people, not hurting yourself. This is one of my root beliefs, something that I was raised with. A core belief is that as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, then it's okay. Whatever you're doing, it's okay. Don't judge yourself too harshly, and other people shouldn't judge you so harshly, and don't judge other people. As long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, it's okay. So that's ahimsa, is non-harming. Satya is truthfulness, speaking the truth, observing the truth, maintaining the truth. Asteya is non-stealing. So Asteya is interesting because it's more than just like not stealing. It's also understanding that when you steal, you're living in a world of lack, and you're telling the world, and you're changing your frame of how you see the world as a world that lacks so much that you need to steal. Whether it's stealing, physical items or people's like creative process or whatever that could be. Trust that there's so much abundance in this world that you can have everything you would ever want without having to steal from somebody else. But when you live in that world of lack, you open yourself up to more lack. When you steal from somebody else, I believe that you will be then stolen from. And even when someone steals from you, it doesn't mean that now you are given permission to steal from others. I'm saying, like, look at asteya and non-stealing, and look at what the opposite is. And I believe the opposite is abundance, and believing in abundance and living in abundance. Brahmacharya is moderation, and basically that everything's okay in moderation, but even the good things, even if you were to do too much of a good thing, like hoarding of yoga even, or money or water or food or anything that may have a good side to it, can be bad when you have too much of it. And when you view, it's almost like that world of lack where it's like, I need to hoard because I just need more and more and more. So when you live with moderation, you understand that everything's good in moderation. Even the things that, may not be so healthy for me, like going out and drinking with my friends, everything is okay in moderation. And then a party girl has the non-hoarding. So I kind of blended those two together, but that's very similar in that sense of the abundance and that there's plenty in this world for everyone to have some. I believe that energy is like fire, and I can have fire and I can share my fire with you, and now you can have fire too, and I don't have less fire. That's how I believe the energy in this world is, whether it's energy in love, energy in success, energy in money, energy in so many things. There's no need to hoard and create this like division between you and other people. So those are the 5 yamas, and people use those as these moral restraints so that they can live a more meaningful and purposeful life. The 5 niyamas are your observances, and that starts with saucha, which is your cleanliness. So just having cleanliness in your space, in your environment. As you know, I've talked about how your outer world reflects your inner world. And there's cleanliness like in your hygiene, cleanliness in your mind, in your language, like be truthful in what you're saying, that's cleanliness. So there's so many ways that you can practice saucha. There was a time that my brain flipped its switch on cleanliness. Prior to that, my husband and I weren't like, filthy, but we just were we're a little bit more cluttered. We didn't wipe down the counters every day. We just were so used to living kind of like this, mid-20s lifestyle. And then we flipped a switch, and all of a sudden it was like your outer world reflects your inner world, and how much better we felt when we did like a nightly reset. When we held ourselves up to a higher standard of cleanliness. I make our bed every morning because it makes me feel good. That to me is my saucha. It's cleanliness in my environment. I'll clean up my office before I'll go live, because if I'm trying to go live and talk to you and I have like bowls and dirty dishes from yesterday sitting on my desk, it's going to be very distracting to me. So next is Santosha. Santosha is themed in the Peace Flow collection and the Peace Flow class. And Santosha means content with the now, contentment. So I love Santosha. It's my favorite niyama. It's my favorite of all of yoga, is the idea of Santosha, to be happy with this moment exactly as it is, without needing or wanting anything more. Especially when we're in this world of goal setting and improving and growing, which can all be really good. It's so easy to think that your happiness is there, is where your growth is going to be. I'm going to set a goal because once I hit that goal, I'm going to be happy. That is actually a big mistake to think that way, because if you're not happy now, why would you be happy then? And you might think to yourself, there's the centered brain and the calculated brain. And the calculated brain might tell you, well, of course I'll be happy then. I'll have $1 million. Of course I'll be happy then. I'll have the dream house. Of course I'll be happy then. I'll have the, whatever your goal is. But the thing is that no matter what you're working towards, if you're not happy as you are, you're not going to find that happiness somewhere else. That's called destination happiness. So practicing Santosha is just sitting in this moment and thinking, I'm happy with how my life is, with who I am, with how everything is in this moment exactly as it is, without wanting or needing anything more. And how empowering is that? Also, when you say that, you are acknowledging and accepting everything that brought you here. So I have pieces of my past that I might look at and be like, I wish that didn't happen. I wish it didn't experience that. I wish I didn't meet that person. But when I practice Santosha, I can recognize all in one moment that all of those experiences, all those people, all of those moments brought me here and made me who I am today. I am today like the exact person that I am, and I'm happy with the person that I am, because of my past, because of the good and the bad and the beautiful and the ugly. And I know that because I'm happy now, I don't need to set goals to find happiness in the future. Instead, I can set goals for even more growth, even more excitement and passion in my life. Just practicing Santosha, I think, is a really, really empowering practice of gratitude. And then next is tapas. Tapas is your fire. It's your discipline. It's that, fire under your butt that gets you moving and motivated and going. And that's why in power yoga, we build heat because it keeps you moving and going. So even for those of you that are like, I don't know, I'm not into that power yoga stuff. I don't like those pink thumbnails. Well, do a little bit of it, just a little bit of it every week, and you'll build more tapas in your life. You'll build more power and passion in your life. And maybe you're like, I've got way too much tapas right now. I'm overboarding on tapas. Okay, then go get some yin, calm yourself down, cool yourself off. But tapas is something that I used to have a sticker that said tapas, and I put it on my computer to remind myself that this is where my passion is. Like, that fire is burning. Do what it takes to keep that fire burning. And if I can feel that fire cooling out or overtaking everything and I feel overwhelmed, well, it's something to look at. Like, how can I bring that back so that I can maintain that fire, control that fire? Svadhyaya is self-study. So Svadhyaya is a practice of self-observation, self-study, learning more about you. A couple weeks ago, some people were talking about the Enneagram number. I've heard of this before, and I was like, you know what? I've never actually looked really deeply into it. So because we were talking about it, I went and Googled Enneagram test, and I took the test, and then I was like, oh, okay, so I'm either a 1 or a 6. Definitely have a lot of both of those qualities. And it was really cool to look at that and to learn more about myself. That's why people like things like horoscopes and Enneagram and self-assessments and personality tests, because you can learn more about yourself. And when you can learn more about yourself, you can start to create boundaries around what it is that helps you grow, what works for you, what you like. And you can start to understand why this thing that your best friend loves so much doesn't work for you. Like, for me, I'm not really someone that wants to be on stages. I definitely don't want fame. I don't want people to recognize me when I'm out in public. I love having these personal connections, and I love having a wide reach to be able to share and motivate and inspire. But I'm not interested in standing up on a stage. I tried it. I spoke at a conference and I did really, really well because I know how to speak, but it was so draining. I slept for 2 days after. So that's me practicing my self-study and realizing it's okay. That's part of who I am. I'm probably a lot more introverted than I thought I was. So how can I continue to move forward and still create success all around me and spread my passion and share and inspire and motivate, but be able to take care of myself in the meantime? How can I do that most effectively? And that's self-study. So I recommend journaling as your first act of self-study. It doesn't have to be like a dear diary. It can be just this is what happened today. And in the upper right corner, a smiley face, a middle face, a meh face or a frowny face, just so that you can look at yourself and you can look back and see if there are patterns. Oh, wow, the week before my period, I have a lot of frowny faces. I wonder why. And you can start to piece things together and see patterns in your life. As I've said before, when you see patterns, it's easier to break patterns. So if you see patterns of things in your life that you don't necessarily want, once you start to recognize and see that pattern, it's a lot easier for you to break it. You can even use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to help reduce and get rid of that pattern. But the first step is to acknowledge it. The last niyama is Isvara Pranidhana. This was a hard one. I'm usually pretty good at pronouncing Sanskrit. Isvara Pranidhana, I think. And that one's surrender to a higher power. And so another one that I don't want to, a lot of people or some people might be like, oh, no, doesn't relate. No. It doesn't have to be surrender to God or surrender to, your best friend's God or, this other person's God. This can be surrender to the fact that there's something bigger than you. There's something. We don't need to understand what that is. It can be as simple as understanding that energy in this world is flowing through every single person. We're all made up of energy. Our thoughts are energy. Our breath is energy. We share energy. Our thoughts become actions because of energy. And when you are just accepting that, you can start to work with it. You can start to work with the universe. I'm open to talking more about, universal energy and us all being connected. I mean, we say that every way when we practice and we say namaste. We are really understanding that in this moment, you and I are one. When you say that to other people, you're recognizing that from this place inside of me that's of love, light, truth, and peace, whether or not I'm acting in that place, that place is in me. It's a seed. I can see that place in you too. It's similar to this book I just read, The Art of Possibility. Right here. If you're into music, you're going to love this book. The Art of Possibility by Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander. Benjamin Zander is a conductor, one of these guys. And The Art of Possibility talks about giving an A. And what that means is very similar to our namaste. When you give an A, you already see the perfect in somebody. You see, like Michelangelo looks at a block of marble and he already sees the creation inside. He just needs to chip away all the excess marble. And when you give an A, or when you say namaste, you see that perfect marble being inside every other person. And they might still have more pieces of marble to chip away, but it doesn't matter because you're already giving them that A. You're already seeing them for that perfect being. And that also is that namaste, that place of love, light, truth, and peace in me to that place of love, light, truth, and peace in you. Even that practice right there is surrendering to a higher power, just acknowledging that there's something bigger, whether or not we understand what that is. There's something bigger. Okay, so those took a long time because those are 10. There's 5 yamas, 5 niyamas, and then there's the rest of the wheel. So the rest of the wheel will not take as long. The next is the asana, which is what you guys know so much about. The asana, the physical postures. It's like the gateway to yoga, right? You walk past the yoga studio, or you walk past the studio at the gym, and you can see people practicing yoga. You're seeing physical postures. The physical postures are just one limb on this wheel. So when you first enter yoga, it's almost like you think that the physical posture is the wheel. But then when you really start to learn more about yoga, you realize that the physical posture is just one of 8. And so you don't need to put so much emphasis on perfecting your poses when you realize that it's not yoga, it's not the entire wheel. Who cares if your heels don't touch in down dog? Who cares if your fingers can't touch the mat in forward fold? As long as you're practicing and you feel good, that's good. As long as you're not hurting yourself or anyone else, it's okay. So your asana, your physical postures are one piece of the wheel. The reason why I like the physical postures so much is because you can use them as a way to practice other aspects of your yoga. You can practice self-study while you're in the middle of flowing and you're recognizing new patterns in your brain, or thought patterns, even physical movement patterns where you're like, wow, I didn't realize I'm much more flexible on this side than that side. And it must start to realize things as you continue in your life. It must be because I always sit with my right leg crossed over my left. I should probably work to balance that. Or I always lounge in this very specific position. No wonder my right side's so curled up and blocked up. So the asanas can be a really great vehicle to practice the rest of your yoga, like pranayama, your breath control. That's the 4th limb. Breath control, we have pranayama practices in the app that are members only. If you're not ready to practice 10 minutes of pranayama, 15 minutes, you're already practicing pranayama in yoga by having breath control. Vinyasa yoga, when you practice one breath, one movement, that's pranayama. In power yoga, when you practice the Ujjayi pranayama, which is the ocean breath, I teach it to you in some of our collections, like in the Power Flow collection, where you constrict the muscles in the back of your throat and you breathe in and out through your nose, kind of loudly, kind of like snory. It sounds like an ocean wave coming in and out. That's breath control. So you are practicing breath control in yoga. Even when I sit here and I say, everyone take a big breath in, big breath out, breath control. So after pranayama is pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal. Sense withdrawal is really withdrawing the senses so that you can tune up and tune in. We tend to live our modern life with so much overstimulation. Our eyes are so overstimulated, especially in the day and age where we have like this, scrolling, we have our smartphones. I have 4 screens in front of me right now and stuff everywhere. And then there's noise all the time and, TVs and radios, and there's just overstimulation constantly. And when you find yourself going, I just wish everything would just like pause, that's a good time for you to start practicing pratyahara, sense withdrawal. Like maybe driving without any noise and allowing your mind to just process, not relying on a radio, to keep you stimulated, because it's really overstimulating, especially when you never stop. And when you think like, oh, I just need a break, I'm going to go on my social media. Your phone is overstimulating. Even though you think you're giving yourself a break, you're straining your eyes even more. You're overstimulating even more. It's even more stressful for the body. And so you can practice this sense withdrawal by limiting your time on your phone or taking entire days off from screens. You can meditate. As simple as that. You can meditate. You can practice going to bed without needing to listen to music or watching television, or you can train yourself to do those things. Another thing that I do to practice pratyahara is I do sensory deprivation. So I go to float tanks. The kind of float tank I go to is different than the ones that like Joe Rogan talks about. The float tank I go to is a pod. So it looks like a clamshell, and it's like a giant plastic pod, and it opens up like this. And the inside is big enough for me to to lay down and like spread my limbs, and I can touch all the sides. But if I like relax, I'm not touching anything. And it's filled up with water about a foot deep, but the water has 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt in it so that there's buoyancy to the water, just like in the Dead Sea. And when you lay down in this water, the temperature of the water and the temperature of the air is the same temperature of your skin. So once you lay down and then you get into that floating position, I call it float. I go and I float about once a week sometimes. You lay down and you relax and you let your body relax and you close your eyes and all the lights will turn off and there'll be no sound. And the idea is that it eliminates all of your senses. It deprives you of senses. You can do it and you can ask for sound, you can ask for light if you're feeling claustrophobic. I do it no sound, no light, entire hour. And I just lay there and it's like the deepest meditation I've ever experienced. And to me, that is my pause. That is my tune out and tune in. So there's many ways that you can practice pratyahara. It's just something to look into, especially if you do have that moment of overwhelm in your life. That's a good sign that it's time to practice a little bit of sense withdrawal. Now, dharana. Dharana is concentration. And that's a really good practice of, can you be focused? Can you concentrate? Can you practice your drishti? When you are practicing balancing poses, are you concentrating? Are you focused? Can you maintain that focus? Can you maintain that concentration? There might have been a time where you could have read a book for an entire hour and you weren't thinking about other things as your eyes were scanning the pages, being like, oh, I missed that whole page, and back up. Practicing dharana brings you more dharana. Practicing concentration begets concentration. So something that I've done recently that has helped me a lot with concentration and focus and productivity is a dopamine detox. I completely remove everything that provides dopamine in an unhealthy way, in a way that could be considered unproductive or unhealthy. So I don't use any screens. I don't have a phone. I don't use the internet. I don't use my computer. I don't check my email, obviously. Obviously, I'm not on social media. I don't watch TV. I can listen to music. I can read a book. I can journal. I can exercise. I can go for walks. I am not supposed to eat stimulating foods, like no like high sugar foods or like alcohol, or do anything that's going to provide dopamine in an unhealthy or unproductive way. So I go an entire day doing this and I feel like it's totally a tune-up. I feel like that day I'm so productive, because when you deprive yourself of dopamine from those sources, your brain will start to look for it in the ways that are typically more boring or harder. Like when you sit down and you're like, should I have an apple or chocolate? Your brain is going to think, well, chocolate, because chocolate is more dopamine, faster dopamine. It's got fat and sugar, and I could store that. And like your brain's thinking in these like survival modes. And so your brain's going to be like chocolate, dopamine, chocolate. And it's the easy route. Should I clean my room or sit on my phone and scroll Facebook? Sit on your phone and scroll Facebook. More dopamine, faster, it's quicker. And plus, people who make these apps like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, they know what they're doing. They pay a lot of money on studies on how to use this effect on your brain and dopamine to get you to stay on their platform. And that's why when you sit down just to message your friend on Messenger, you're there an hour later going, what happened? And so when you remove these, negative or unhealthy or unproductive aspects of dopamine or providers of dopamine, just for one day, just for one whole day, you become immensely more concentrated, focused, and productive, not just that day, but lingering effects afterwards too. Second to last is dhyana. Dhyana is meditation, the practice of meditation. We have meditations in the app. There are so many ways to meditate. And I also have a meditation 101 video and some breakdowns of a couple different ways that you can meditate. Again, with meditation, you don't need anything. But again, with meditation, your brain is going to go, that is starving me of dopamine. I would rather scroll Facebook. Like meditation can be very challenging to begin. Your brain and every part of you might fight you actually starting a meditation practice. But once you start meditating, even 5 minutes a day, once you make that a part of your routine, it unfolds in your life. It blossoms in your life. In meditation, you can observe yourself. You can observe the thoughts. You can recognize that you are not your thoughts. You can observe thought patterns. When you can observe patterns, you can break them. You can do so much growth and self-love and self-care through the practice of meditation. It's also grounding and calming. And when you start practicing meditation on a regular basis, you'll start to notice that you walk differently, you talk differently, you're just more grounded and more calm in nature. And if you want to know what that looks like, go and look at the meditation video that I recorded right when I got back from India. Like I look at it now and I'm like, yeah, I was so grounded and calm because I'd just gotten back from India and my meditation practice was it was stronger than it's ever been in that moment. And we got back in the height of COVID and it was like, it could have been terrifying. It could have been extremely nerve-wracking, but I was already in this place where I was like, I'm unaffected. Like this is all okay. I'm accepting the world. I'm accepting the situation. I am calm. I am grounded, and I will be that grounded source for everyone else if they need it. And over time, I think maybe a couple months later, it must have been 4 months later or something, that I slowly fell out of that meditation practice. And it is really hard to begin, but it's not that hard to sit on your mat and just close your eyes for a minute, or to do it right after we say namaste and tell yourself, I'll do 5 more minutes. I'm going to set a timer and I'm just going to lay on my mat for 5 more minutes of shavasana and I will meditate. Now the last is samadhi. Samadhi, the top of this wheel right here, is union. It is enlightenment. It is oneness. Samadhi is like that ultimate place that you might strive to be, but you don't have to be like the angel of yoga to have samadhi. You experience samadhi when you are done with like that really amazing yoga class and you're like, what is this yoga bliss I'm feeling? Why do I feel so connected to everyone? Like that is samadhi. And samadhi can come and go, and that's okay. Like it's not like this enlightenment place and now you are Siddhartha. Like you can practice samadhi in your everyday life. You can experience samadhi in your everyday life. So those are the 8 limbs of yoga. And these are all just ways that you can live a meaningful and purposeful life. And it's a wheel because it's about balance. It's about just kind of cherry picking the things that feel good to you in this moment, that inspire you in this moment, that bring you tapas, that passion in this moment, and trust that your growth might ping pong you around on this wheel. You might go to a 200-hour and learn all of it and start to practice all of it, just whatever it is for you. Maybe today it's just the asanas. I'm okay with that. So that is the what is yoga. Let me just remind you what yoga isn't. Okay. And this is, I'm careful to say it because it's almost counterproductive to say it this way, because I really truly believe that yoga is, it's such an umbrella. Yoga is non-judgmental. Yoga is ever supportive. Yoga is recognizing that union in me to the union in you. Yoga is not creating a divide between us. Yoga isn't, I'm better than you. Yoga isn't, oh, look at her, she's doing this wrong. Yoga isn't, oh, you poor thing. Like, yoga is not judgmental. Yoga is not egotistical. Yoga is not a scale of measurement. There's no measurement in yoga. I know we talk about, sometimes in some of our challenges, it's like, take a picture so you can measure your growth. But sometimes the actual growth can't be measured. Sometimes it's in here or in here. So even though you're taking a picture of your forward fold and then you look at the picture again 6 weeks later and you're like, I don't see a difference. Well, there's a pretty big difference there, whether or not it's in the physical practice. So when we talk about that kind of stuff, like measure your practice, it's really because we're bringing yoga back into our modern world and how can it apply in our modern world. But our modern world is a world of measurement versus a world of possibility. And yoga is the world of possibility. It's connecting every person and every being. It's really a peaceful place to be when you live yoga. And even when you find yourself like doing what yoga isn't, and you find yourself judging or gossiping or, hating or trolling or whatever, any of those things, or you find yourself just angry and being mean to your husband, whatever, it's okay. Like, just come back to your core. Remember earlier when I said yoga, your growth in general is like a yo-yo going uphill. So you were going uphill. You were like, yeah, I'm feeling great. Everyone in my life, I just love everyone and I'm so grateful. I'm so appreciative. My dang kids left those Legos out again. I stepped on them and I yelled at them, but then I apologized and I feel better because they got to see me as a human and we had a good talk about it. And I apologize to myself too. I'm not going to judge myself. That was a moment. I think anyone would yell at a profanity if they stepped on a Lego, but then my dang husband, and like your life can do this, but as long as it's doing this going uphill, okay, as long as you are growing and improving and you can see that in yourself and you can not judge yourself for when you have those moments that you kind of went down a little bit. So non-judgment, not only to other people, but to yourself, practicing self-love and self-care. And the more you can turn those towards you, the more you can give that to other people. There we go. What yoga is, what yoga isn't. And even when you see other people on the internet displaying themselves in a way that yoga isn't, even if they claim to be yogis or yoga teachers or whatever, non-judgment, okay? They're in their own path. They're on their own journey. You could create boundaries around those kinds of people. You can, and that is a form of self-love for you. Like for me, my words can reach millions sometimes. And sometimes people can come back and not be very nice. Sometimes, like on Facebook, people are kind of gross. And I'm not going to take that energy and I'm not going to chew it up and digest it and then try to spew it back. I'm just going to create a boundary. Block, delete, remove. Much better. From that place of love, light, peace, and truth in me to that place of love, light, peace, and truth in you. Namaste. Hi, I'm Sarah Beth, and I'm here to help you get fit, happy, and healthy through yoga. You're gonna love my free 7-day beginner yoga challenge with simple beginner-level yoga videos to help you get fit and flexible fast. All you need to do to get access to this challenge is click the first link in the comments below, enter your name and email, and I'll instantly send you the challenge calendar and all the details. Now, did you enjoy this video? Let me know by clicking the like button below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss when I upload a new free yoga video. Have a good day.